What's up, you guys? This is Jay Young2 back with another video. And in this video today, I'm going to be discussing the Minnesota Timberwolves. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more basketball content. Let's get into it. The Minnesota Timberwolves are one of the youngest teams in the entire NBA. With an average age of 23.9, the Timberwolves are the third youngest team in the NBA. And because of this, there are still many guys on this team who aren't really fully experienced. And even their best player on the team, Karl-Anthony Towns. Looking on paper, this season was supposed to be a promising season for the Minnesota Timberwolves. They got the number one pick in the NBA draft. They selected Anthony Edwards. They have D'Angelo Russell and karl-Anthony Towns coming back in better than ever, but we all know what happened with karl-Anthony Towns and his family, and that definitely played a huge role in his play, especially this season alone. But also with the development of Josh Okogie and Malik Beasley, despite his women issues. But the one problem that has been very problematic for this Minnesota Timberwolves team is their coaching. They're not really drawing up the right plays for this team to really mesh. A lot of guys on this team right now, they're playing more so like, it's your turn and it's my turn, especially. They're not really playing through a system. And many guys on this team, I feel like, really don't know their roles. Obviously, karl-Anthony Towns is the best player on the team. He's the number one scoring option. You have D'Angelo Russell, who is the best shooter on this team, but he only shoots about 40% from the three-point line, which is actually pretty good and a career high for him this season. But another huge problem for this team as well is that karl-Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell haven't even played much together to begin with. They haven't even played double-digit games together this season. And many people expected that getting D'Angelo Russell on this team, it was a big deal. Obviously, getting a guy who was an all-star level player on your team, but he still doesn't really make this team better. But luckily for the Timberwolves, they still have promise with Anthony Edwards, who this season has definitely been playing better overall. His efficiency really isn't that good. He attempts a lot of shots, but he still has shown a lot of promise, especially with his athleticism and his style of play, that he can definitely be a huge factor on this team, especially with creating that big three for the Timberwolves. Not only that, but Jaden McDaniels, who's another really good player on this team, a guy who was low-key. It was a player who they traded for when they got Ricky Rubio on the team last season. When you add him and his ability to defend, he's going to be a very important player on this Minnesota Timberwolves team, alongside Josh Okogie, who's another really good defender who has the ability to be an all-NBA defensive player one day, in my opinion. But for Jaden McDaniels, though, overall, this guy, he has an all-around game. And if he continues to develop at the way he is developing, there's no doubt in my mind that he can be another huge factor for this Minnesota Timberwolves team in the future as well, with his amazing potential. But overall, for the Minnesota Timberwolves, especially on the coaching and the basketball court, they just made really terrible decisions, especially blowing leads this season, having just bad rotations overall, different types of lineups that don't really mesh. Like other young teams, they turn over the ball a lot, but they did fire Ryan Saunders as the head coach, and they replaced him with Chris Finch, who has actually a pretty good resume, especially with helping Nikola Jokic on the Denver Nuggets become one of the best offensive players that we see now in the NBA. And I feel like if he can help karl-Anthony Towns and his development as well, and becoming a better leader, but not only a better leader, but a better overall player who can lead this Minnesota Timberwolves team, this team, they can be a lot better in the future. But, as we all remember, with having Jimmy Butler on this team, he was that focal point of this team because he helped this team make it to the playoffs because of his leadership. And that's why the Heat were so good last year, because of Jimmy Butler's leadership. So many people were hating on him and talking so much things about him. But look what he did in his time with the Timberwolves. He helped them get to the playoffs for the first time, and since Kevin Garnett was there. And then on top of that, he goes to the 76ers, and he almost makes it to the Eastern Conference Finals. So looking overall now at the Minnesota Timberwolves, when Jimmy Butler left, look at the direction that they've gone. They haven't really significantly improved. Sure, they've gotten lots of draft picks, and they got a lot of young talent on their team who can still develop into really solid level players, but there's still a lot of room for work for this team to grow. I think also if they could possibly, trade for, which is probably not going to happen, but if they can acquire like a veteran player who has that experience, who can actually help this team, I feel like that's going to help them so much more, especially with their development overall. Because when I look at the Minnesota Timberwolves, I look at a team that really doesn't know what its identity is. Looking throughout NBA history and with the Minnesota Timberwolves to just begin with, this team is not really a team that has just shocked everyone. They've been a pretty mediocre franchise ever since they've been in Minnesota. I mean, Kevin Garnett, for crying out loud, was the only relevance for this city in general. Then when they got Kevin Love, and they were a pretty decent team then, but they still couldn't make any noise. So, looking at this Minnesota Timberwolves team, especially too, when they had Andrew Wiggins, who was supposed to be the next Kobe Bryant type player, his time in Minnesota failed as well. And looking at karl-Anthony Towns, I really wouldn't be surprised if the Timberwolves decided to part ways with him and just start over. I feel like his time for this team, he's not really going to be the best player for this team. I understand what all he went through, especially with his family and things like that. But I'm just speaking specifically from a basketball perspective. I feel like in order for karl-Anthony Towns to be a really good player, there's going to have to be another guy who's better than him on the team, personally. And that's what they had when they had Jimmy Butler. He was still the best player on that team during that time, and he helped that team. I don't feel like karl-Anthony Towns is really necessarily the right piece as the leader on this team. But to his favor as well, that a lot too has to do with the coaching and them not really implementing the right system for this team. So I feel like if this guy, Chris Finch, is actually going to be a really good coach and help this team in the future, then maybe there is promise. But, for the Timberwolves, they're still going to be a team with another top level pick in the NBA draft. And a lot of their guys on their team are still very young. So there's still lots of development, even with karl-Anthony Towns, D'Angelo Russell, especially those two who are the best guys on the team. There's still a lot of development in their games that they can still grow in. But only time will tell for this Minnesota Timberwolves team. This team, they've been very mediocre from the get-go. There hasn't really been any success. This team might even have the argument as the most cursed team in basketball, even possibly worse than the Clippers. But I hope you guys enjoyed this brief video. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more basketball content each and every week. Have a good day. Peace.